What if the story you've been told about China's Belt and Road Initiative is only half the truth? What if, instead of a sinister plot for global domination, it's actually one of the boldest economic rescue missions ever attempted on a global scale? Two questions, one truth. Jeffrey Sachs just pulled back the curtain, and what he revealed has left Western experts scrambling for their notepads, calculators, and possibly their passport. And let's start where it gets uncomfortable, because truth rarely arrives in a gift-wrapped package with easy answers. China, in the last 2 decades, didn't just leap forward, it launched itself into the future with the precision of a moonshot. And, unlike others who talk about sustainability while dragging their feet, China has become the world's workshop for green tech. Solar panels, wind turbines, hydrogen energy, EVs, batteries, power transmission, and even next-gen nuclear. Name a clean energy sector and chances are China either dominates it or is breathing down the neck of whoever does. This wasn't by accident. It wasn't luck. It wasn't even capitalism in its rawest form. It was a calculated, government-backed plan to become indispensable to the planet's energy transition. And it worked. While the West was still writing think pieces and debating whether climate change was real, China was betting on electric vehicles and converting deserts. It saw the 21st century coming and ran to greet it while others were still wiping off the fog from their rear-view mirrors. So now comes the awkward part. What do you do when you've built the infrastructure of the future, but the old guard refuses to buy in? That's where the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, enters like an unexpected guest at a family reunion, bringing both the dessert and the bill. Sachs, always the economist with a rebel streak, lays it out. BRI isn't a power grab, it's a wake-up call with a wallet attached. So at its core, the Belt and Road Initiative is simple. China observes the gaps in global infrastructure, roads not built, ports not connected, power grids stuck in the 1960 years, and offers to fill them. Not with lectures, not with conditions wrapped in legalese, but with cold hard cash, high-speed rail, wind turbines, and solar grids. The only catch? It's coming from Beijing, not Brussels or Washington. For example, take Ethiopia, one of the stars of this global makeover. A few years ago, rural Ethiopia was largely disconnected, isolated not just by geography, but by a lack of energy and transport. Then China came in. It built a railway from Addis Ababa to Djibouti and powered up local communities with new hydroelectric stations. Suddenly, farmers had irrigation. Their avocados didn't rot in baskets. They made it to Dubai, fresh and full of promise. And the farmers? They were building new homes, not just surviving but thriving. This isn't imperialism. It's infrastructure with dividends. Still, Western commentators, trained to smell a conspiracy in every Chinese handshake, called it overcapacity. Sachs dismisses this like someone swatting away a fruit fly at a buffet. Overcapacity? No. It's called readiness. And the world, teetering on climate collapse, better hope China brings even more capacity. China didn't build a green tech empire to collect dust in warehouses, it built it to export, to spread innovation, the way Europe once spread railroads and the US spread the dollar. Only this time, it's solar panels, lithium batteries, and digital backbones riding out on high-speed trains. And those who are wise enough to get on board, countries across Africa, Asia, Latin America, are riding into a future of self-sufficiency. But what about debt? Ah yes, the Western world's favorite scare tactic, debt trap diplomacy, they whisper dramatically, as if every country was a wide-eyed teenager accepting candy from a stranger. But here's the rub. China doesn't force countries to borrow. These nations want the investment. They've seen what happens when the IMF and World Bank knock on the door: sudden austerity, economic shock therapy, and the smell of neo-colonialism wafting through the air. Sachs argues for longer loan terms, 20 or 30 years, because infrastructure doesn't sprout instant wealth. Give it time, and these economies will mature like China's did. Sachs points to history, not hypotheticals. China didn't rush its development, it built slowly, methodically, until the dragon no longer needed wings to fly. And while the West drowns in its own contradictions, championing capitalism while flinching at competition, China presses forward, undeterred. In Europe, car makers clung to combustion engines like security blankets. In the US, EV policy flip-flopped, depending on who was tweeting from the White House. Meanwhile, China decided, quietly, boldly, and permanently, that the age of electric was now. The result? A competitive firestorm that left most of the Western automakers coughing in the dust. Now we have Chinese EV companies, born from this relentless Darwinism of innovation, dominating global markets. BYD, NIO, XPeng, names that once sounded like crossword puzzle answers, are now writing the rulebook for electric mobility. Sachs sees this not as a threat, but as a template. The West had a chance, and it hesitated. China didn't. All of this has created a strange new world order, where the country once labeled the world's factory is now its lab, its design studio, and its power plant. The BRI is not a backdoor strategy for domination, it's a front-row seat to the future, offered at a price that's not exploitation, but investment. And let's address the elephant, and the elephant's carbon footprint in the room. The climate crisis. It's no longer creeping, it's sprinting. Global temperatures have spiked in ways that would once take decades to unfold. Sachs points out the scary math. In 4 years, we've had a temperature rise that used to take 20. El Niño has come and gone, and yet the heat stays. This isn't weather, it's climate gone haywire. Yet, amid all this chaos, there's a glimmer of order. The infrastructure China offers isn't just economic, it's ecological. The BRI isn't paving over jungles, it's wiring up wind farms. It's shipping solar panels to where they're most needed. It's connecting the disconnected, not only to markets, but to solutions. But the US? It's tiptoeing backwards, threatening to exit the Paris Agreement again, like a drunk guest trying to leave the party early while claiming they were never there. Sachs doesn't even bother to sugarcoat it. The West, especially America, is playing with matches while the house is already on fire. And so, BRI becomes more than a headline or a geopolitical chess move, it becomes a lifeline. When droughts get longer, seas rise higher, and temperatures keep climbing, who's laying down the cables and turbines that can pull us back from the edge? Spoiler alert, it's not the ones still arguing over who invented the internet. Yes, there are problems, corruption exists, not every project is perfect, some partner countries mismanage, overspend, or underdeliver. But Sachs is not naive. He's saying, judge the mechanism, not the misuse. The Belt and Road, when done right, is a marvel of 21st century ambition, and ambition, it turns out, is the one renewable resource the West is running low on. But wait, just when you thought this ride couldn't get more electrifying, let's take it up a notch. Because here's what the so-called experts don't want to admit. China's Belt and Road isn't just about trade routes and infrastructure loans. No. This is China creating a geopolitical chessboard, and it's playing 10 moves ahead while the West is still looking for the checkers box. With every railway built in rural Africa or every port modernized in Southeast Asia, China isn't just laying bricks, it's laying claims to influence, loyalty, and future prosperity. The shock among Western elites isn't that China is helping nations build roads, it's that these countries are choosing Beijing over Brussels, Washington, or any of the previous development bullhorns who've long overpromised and underdelivered. You see, nothing makes a G7 bureaucrat spit out his quinoa salad faster than a developing country, saying, thanks, but we'll take China's deal. And why wouldn't they? Western aid packages often come with a 500-page manifesto of conditions, reforms, and PowerPoint slides from consultants who haven't stepped outside a Marriott in 10 years. China, on the other hand, shows up with cranes, solar panels, high-speed rail blueprints, and a check. It's not charity. It's not colonialism. It's capitalism, dressed in Mandarin, and it's working. Let's not kid ourselves. Western nations once had the monopoly on soft power. They had Hollywood, Harvard, and Bono. Now, China has infrastructure, high-speed Wi-Fi, and EVs that don't need a roadside vigil every 50 miles. Development is the new diplomacy, and China, to the horror of Atlantic Council roundtables everywhere, is fluent in it. Let's also be clear, this isn't some utopian dream fueled by panda hugs and fortune cookies. China's Belt and Road isn't just altruism, it's strategic, it's calculated, it's economic judo. China lends, the country builds. China supplies, the country buys. Everybody wins. Or at least, that's the billboard-size narrative. And critics? Oh, they're everywhere. They scream debt trap louder than your neighbor during a World Cup final. But look deeper. Most countries in the initiative have benefited more than they've suffered. The so-called traps are often just projects with long timelines and large scopes, something the West conveniently forgets takes time to mature. But nuance doesn't trend on Twitter, so here we are. Still, while the West points fingers, something unexpected is happening. Former colonies, marginalized economies, landlocked nations, they're standing up, asking for high-speed rails, green energy grids, and data centers. And who's offering to supply them? Not the ones still debating fossil fuel subsidies in committee, it's China. But the real twist? It's not just the developing world eyeing China's model. Some in Europe are starting to wonder if they too should hop on the Dragon Express. Italy flirted with the initiative. Greece handed over a port. Even the UK whispered sweet nothings about cooperation before Brexit turned them into a geopolitical bachelor. What China's doing, in truth, is rewriting the global script. Development isn't a lecture anymore, it's a deal. It's practical, it's hardware over hypotheticals. And Sachs? He's not shocked. He's nodding. Because Sachs sees the machinery behind the message. He knows that while others preach sustainability, China's flooding the world with the tech to make it real. And let's not forget climate change. While some countries are debating whether it's real as their lawns burst into flames, China's mass-producing the tools to stop it. Solar panels, wind turbines, EV fleets, nuclear prototypes. Green is no longer a slogan, it's a SKU number, and it ships from Shanghai. That's the irony. The Belt and Road may just be the world's most aggressive green initiative in disguise. Forget banners, forget summits. China's plan is build now, plan it later. Sachs points this out with the kind of calm that makes lobbyists panic. Because he's saying, this is happening. You can either criticize from the sidelines or build your own railway. And America? It's stuck in a strange loop, trying to outspend China while cutting its own investment budgets, attempting to demonize Belt and Road while quietly copying aspects of it. The West is trying to beat China with the tools it discarded years ago: half-hearted partnerships, slow funding mechanisms, and bureaucratic bottlenecks thicker than a blockchain handbook. The funny part? While China's laying fiber optic cables in Laos, Washington is laying out another sanctions list. While Chinese engineers are measuring new rail gauges in Tanzania, European parliaments are still drafting resolutions on whether to condemn something. The world is shifting, and those who stand still will be paved over, sometimes literally, by a Chinese-built expressway. Now, let's talk about perception. The Belt and Road is not a PR stunt. China doesn't need a standing ovation. It needs access, trade routes, and influence. And it's earning those not with fiery speeches, but with cold steel and digital infrastructure. If development were a movie, China would be directing, producing, and writing the score, while the West argues over casting. But perhaps the most explosive part Sachs revealed, without shouting, without finger-pointing, is this. Maybe, just maybe, the world needs China right now. Not just as a supplier or investor, but as a builder of a bridge to the future. Not ideological, not romantic, practical, scalable, and fast. And this is where it gets spicy. Because if the West doesn't stop scoffing and start building, it'll soon be negotiating trade deals at Chinese-built airports, paying tolls on Chinese-funded highways, and checking in at Chinese-owned smart hotels in cities that didn't exist on a map 10 years ago. The future isn't waiting for approval. It's being printed in 3D in Shenzhen. It's comical, really. Western think tanks still draw maps where they dominate all spheres. Meanwhile, Chinese freight ships have already docked. The game has moved on. Sachs didn't just pull back the curtain, he ripped it off and set it on fire. The truth isn't some hidden conspiracy. It's sitting in plain sight, wrapped in a shipping container, headed for Nairobi. So now, here's the final twist. All those warnings about China, the cries of control and corruption, they're distractions from a much bigger truth. That a single nation decided to build, lend, and connect while others hesitated. And the world, shaken, stirred, and fully awake, is responding not with applause, but with partnerships. To ignore this shift is not just naive, it's self-inflicted irrelevance. So, If you're still sitting on the fence about China's Belt and Road Initiative, you might want to check if the fence was built by China too. Subscribe now, like the video, and leave a comment. Is China saving the world, or just rebranding it? In Mandarin, the tracks are already laid, the train is moving. Are you on board, or still looking for the station?